feel free to speak up. If we don't get through everything today, that's fine. We can always do this another time. Okay, so what do I want to show you first? Right, so actually, who here knows how to do passwordless SSH? Good, okay. Most people don't, so we're going to talk about passwordless SSH. So as you know, SSH is the command that you use in Unix to connect into a remote machine. And if you've done this before, you've seen something like this, right? So it's SSH, my username, at whatever the host machine is. And because I've connected to this machine before, it's not asking for me to accept the key, but it is prompting me for my password. So I type in my password. Oh, and I did it wrong. OK, good. I've succeeded in logging into this machine. With passwordless SSH, what you do is you give your key to the remote machine ahead of time so that any time that you access it from this dedicated machine, you don't have to type your password in. And this is super useful if A, you're lazy, or B, you want to set up a whole bunch of automated scripts and you want to sort of like have those remote machines do stuff on your behalf without you having to type in your password all the time. All right, so how do I do this? It's a two-step process. Which starts with, I have to make some keys. So I go SSH keygen, and I'll say, which file do I want to save the key? By default, it puts it into this .ssh folder, which sits in home, right? So you can't normally see it. And for those people that are walking in, I mentioned, so I'm actually recording this lecture, so if there's, if you want to look at this afterwards, you totally can. So in my home directory, and you can't see it, but .ssh is a hidden directory, which actually, I've done this before, so I already have keys. This is where this thing is gonna store. So I'm just gonna hit enter, and that's gonna generate my, see, it's complaining, it already exists, overwrite, yes. So that's my private key. I'm gonna give this thing no passphrase, same passphrase. And now if I go into the folder, cd.ssh, I have two keys. So this one here, id rsa.pub, this is my public key, and then id RSA, that's my private key. I'm not going to hit more on these. Actually, I could probably hit more because I'm going to have to regenerate these things anyway. So just to show you what they look like, they're just text files, right? So this is my private key, which I'm going to have to delete at the end of this so I don't get hacksaw. And then this is the corresponding public key. What we're going to do is we're going to move this public key onto a remote machine, and then I'm going to add that key to the authorized key files on the remote machine. So to do that, I go scopy id rsa.pub onto uit.ca, transfer it over there. All right, and now I'm going to SSH into that machine. I go into the .ssh folder on that other machine. If it's not already there, you're going to have to create one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the id rsa.pub onto, well, actually I'm going to cat id rsa.pub onto a file called, what was it, authorized keys? Does that sound right? Let's see here.
Non-hosts?
No, it's not. I think it's authorized keys. But let me check because it's been a while since I've done this. You might be right. There. Okay. So once you have once I have my public key from this laptop sitting on that remote machine, there's this file called authorized keys now, which lists keys, public keys that are allowed to go into this thing without any problem. All right. So now, anytime that I SSH from my laptop into this guy, I don't have to type in my password. So that's called passwordless SSH.
So, if I might.
Yeah.
So one other thing that's useful is it's a very similar procedure. You can set up your GitHub account or your Bitbucket account if you're doing remote repository hosting, so that when you do pushing and pulling from any other machine, well, from your home machine to the remote repository, you can do that without also having to enter your login credentials. So it's more or less the same procedure.
Yeah. Okay. So that's passwordless SSH. There are some security issues with it, so be careful. Okay. So like, don't throw around your private keys or stuff like that. And generally, you don't want to spread that public key too widely either, because if that remote machine gets compromised, then people can actually start daising around. So bad stuff can happen. So if you have a super secure machine and you don't want it to have that security risk, don't use passwordless SSH. Only use it on machines where it's sort of a lower security issue. Yes, there's a question.
Is there a way of tracing back the public key to which machine it's corresponds to?
Yeah, so if you look in the authorized key, let me just show it here. So here's my authorized key file. It's right at the end. So this key was generated on italent at telemachus.local, which is the name of my laptop. Normally,
That's not tied to your machine other than, that's not something like
It's not a
traceable.
oh, you're asking, can another person identify this?
Yeah.
No. I mean,
it's not a MAC address. Or
no, this is not a MAC address, right?
Yeah.
But for your own organizational purposes, if you're like, which key was this, right? Okay, so that's basically all I wanted to say about passwordless
And that
SSH.
doesn't have to be a fully qualified domain name. Right?
And it does not have to be a domain name, exactly. All it has to be is in sync with whatever the thing is launching from. So right now, this telemachus.local, I mean, this is just my local IP address that I guess have been given by the router, right? But if I were to connect this into a different connection, then I might actually get a full IP address, so that's okay. Anybody have any questions about passwordless SSH before I move on? Yeah.
I just have a comment. On most Linux distributions, instead of doing the scopy and then the catting onto the authorized keys, there's the SSH copy ID
Okay.
command.
So what is it? SSH copy ID?
SSH dash copy. I don't think it's on Mac by default.
Okay, SSH copy ID.
And then
So
just the host name, and it does all the second part.
cool. So there's another automated way to do this. Awesome. Good. Okay, that's what I wanted to say there. So the next thing that I want to show you is something which is called cron tab. Does anyone here know what cron or cron tab is? Can I get a show of hands? Okay, so still, I don't want to show things that everybody knows, but if we sort of have a critical mass that don't, we'll go through it. Okay, so I'm going to now SSH into another box. This is a machine that is sitting in my basement right now. It's a Raspberry Pi, and it is collecting temperature data of, actually, hold on. It's collecting temperature data in my basement as a function of time. Let's see if I can, there we go. And the way that it's doing that, if I can remember, hold on, is, well, two things. So I have some program that when you run it, there's a little temperature, what do you call it, thermometer that's connected to the Pi, and it stores that information, it dumps it to a text file. The way that I have this thing running as a function of time, and I can show you what the results look like. Oops. How can I show it? The way that I have it generate results as a function of time is I have what's called a cron job that runs, I think, every 10 minutes. And it invokes this script, grabs what the temperature value is, adds it to a file, and then punts that to another machine that has Dropbox running. So this is the temperature in my basement over, I guess a couple weeks or whatever like that. It's pretty cold down there. I set this up because I was going home for Christmas and I was kind of worried about my basement freezing while I was gone. And I thought, like, well, how can I make this better? And I put this thing in.
So you set up a cron job.
So I set up a cron job, Raspberry Pi, and a thermometer, because like who doesn't do that? Yeah, and actually, so if you're wondering what these fluctuations are, this of course is my thermostat that's going on, or my heater rather, that's going on and off. Okay, yeah, so that's a use case for cron job. Yes, there was a question.
What kind of server did you set up?
On the Pi, you mean? Okay, so for that, I did basically sudo apt-get install SSH, right? So I just set up an open SSH server, and then I have a cron job that grabs my IP address from whatismyipaddress.org. That saves a text file, and then that punts it to a machine that I have online that's synced with Dropbox. So my laptop always has an up-to-date IP address of my home machine. And then on my router, I have basically all it's port forwarded so that it goes to the Pi. Does that answer your question, basically? Okay. Right, okay, yeah. So that sounds significantly fancier than it is, by the way, right? Like, so how do I get my IP address? I might as well just show you this. It's super easy, right? It's like I do a wget on this website, which is a website. When you type it in, it tells you your IP address. I save this text file plain. I move. Does everybody know about wget, by the way? Okay, yeah, wget, and you can just grab stuff off the internet. So I grab this text file, which saves to my local directory. The messages and stuff like that just go to dev null. I move this thing plain to ip.txt, and then I scopy ip.txt to a machine that I have sitting in my office, which has Dropbox, and I have passwordless SSH set up, and so that's how it keeps it sync in Dropbox. Alternatively, you can install Dropbox on your Raspberry Pi.
So this way you can easily log into your machine from home.
Exactly. You can do this with like Dyn DNS, or you can like set it up on your router and all those kind of stuff, but I don't know, this seemed
so
easier.
can anyone who breaks into your Dropbox account.
Yeah, but
All they'll know is the IP address.
they know the IP address, right?
Yeah.
Which is like, you could find it anyway, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, if someone really wants to like break into my particular machine, they're more than welcome to. They could probably like clean some stuff up. I got a lot of work in there that needs to be done. Yes.
Why didn't you just get a domain name?
Pardon me?
Why didn't you just get a domain name?
You mean like why didn't I buy a website or like a DNS like tamlin.org or something like that?
Basically, this is just DNS.
Because I'm cheap. Because
Yeah, it's
my
extra $30
It's also
a month.
dynamic.
because my ISP charges for a static IP like $5 a month, and I'm cheap, and I don't know, I could do it in like 3 lines. Yes, you could do this in a better way, but I kind of liked knowing my, so that I could show you now as a learning experience. That's why I planned all of this ahead. Right. I also wanted to sort of, the other thing that was useful too is that since I was already scopying automatically into Dropbox from my Pi, I was like, well, I'm transferring a file anyway. I might as well just throw the IP address along with it. Okay, so right. So this is my script called ip.sh, which brings me to my next point, which is how do you use cron, and what's a cron? Cron is a, what do you call it, like a Linux daemon that runs every minute, and it says, so, you got anything for me? And there's this file that you can put on your computer that instructs the operating system to do stuff at regular intervals. And the way that you edit that file is you use something called crontab -e, which opens in your default editor, which in my case is VI, because VI is sweet. And the syntax is pretty simple. Well, actually, no, the syntax is awful until you learn what it means. If you want something to run every minute, you would put a line in that looks like this. Whatever.sh. So this would run a command, whatever.sh, every minute on your computer. I have this IP sync thing running every 10 minutes, I think is the syntax for this thing. Is that right?
No, that'd be 0.
The long story short is it's really difficult for me to figure out how to type in a particular time with crontab. So every single time that I want to figure out, do I run this every day, every month, or whatever, I Google, what is the syntax for crontab to run once a month? And then I go on a website, and then somebody tells me what the answer is, and it's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. It's like star divided by 12 plus or minus whatever. So this thing, the python.temperature script, this thing runs every 10 minutes, and this IP thing, I think, runs maybe every hour? Is it every hour? On the app, yeah. Okay. See, someone on the internet or in the room will tell you what the syntax is for these stars, and then you get it to do what you want it to do.
And if they're trying to mess with you, they'll get downloaded on Stack Overflow.
Exactly, right?
So what file are you editing here?
This is called, the particular file is this temp blah, 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 blah. The way that you access this is you go crontab -e, and every user can have their own cron jobs that are running independently of one another. So you can set this thing to go automatically. And you can see that it calls this Python temperature.py. So this grabs the temperature from the temperature sensor, and it also syncs it to the machine. And then IP is what keeps my IP address in sync. So this is crontab, and there's lots of automated tasks that you can use, which is useful on a daily basis. Like for instance, backups, right? So now I'll take you to my next thing. How am I doing on time, by the way? Good. Okay. Anybody else have any questions about crontab, cron jobs? You can set these things to go like once a year, once a month, once a whatever.
So I've never been a big cron user, chiefly because I'm always running things on laptops or on machines that I'm turning on and off.
Right. Yeah.
So so I've always wondered, like, does it make sense to still do this if you have a machine that isn't on all the time?
So I mean, if you want like a backup, then cron doesn't do like a backlog of stuff, right? It will only run while it's on. But if you set your laptop to back up every hour or something like that, then every hour that it's on is going to back up. Yeah. So I think in those cases it's probably useful. Yes. There's another question.
So crontab has the behavior that it tries to email you when things run. So it emails you a summary if you have an email address somewhere in your configuration.
Yes.
And so to suppress that, you put an arrow to null at the end.
Yeah, so you can, this is a good point, right? So I think I probably didn't properly set up my email config, and so this thing is dumping somewhere. But if you want to kill it, I think, what is it you want? Like alligator and onto dev null, right? Something like that. If you're running backups, though, you actually want information about something failing. So in that case, don't pipe it away, right? Okay.
That's 15 minutes.
That's 15 minutes. All right, well, in the interest of fairness, I'm going to stop talking. And I guess we'll just have to do this again sometime, and we can talk about some other stuff. Okay, who's next?
Kevin,
Kevin's next. Our next wizard.
Do I have any room for my laptop?
Can you use on this machine? Because I already
Yeah,
got
no, I can use it.
screencast.
I just have my file here that I'm gonna read.
What's the file?
It's just a file that I made. Basically, it's just for my guidance as well.
Oh,
Go
okay.
through stuff.
Oh, you mean type on here, but watch here.
Yeah.
Sorry. Clip this on so that your typing doesn't mess up the mic,
Sure.
if you don't mind. Thanks.
So I have to clip that on.
If anyone else has any ideas or stuff they want to present,
Wow, the screen is really small.
I know you have to like make it.
I have to like look at the bigger screen here.
There you go.
Okay, so yeah, so I'm going to talk about NewPlot. Has anybody here used NewPlot before? Hands up. So if you haven't used it, it's just a command line interface plotting software that fits nicely into the Bash shell. So you can do stuff using scripts. You can also do stuff interactively using commands. Is my time up already, Kyle? No. So I'm just going to show you some basic commands, and then I can show you some 2D and 3D plotting, as well as it can also do contour plots. But it also has a basic fitting routine. So if you want to fit some data with some function that you know might be appropriate for that data, then you can actually do that as well. So if you don't have NewPlot on a Debian machine, you can just do sudo apt-get install NewPlot-x11. And if you're on a Mac, you can use port or homebrew. So I think you have NewPlot on here already, Isaac, which you do. Okay. I've also put up some files. If you go to this website. You can just click that, and then there's a zip file, which you can download some data files, which I'll be using to plot up some 1D and 2D data files. So you can just go to that, krichko.github.io. I'll leave that there in the background. So in NewPlot, it has a lot of functions that already come predefined within it. So it has like absolute value, cosine, a lot of math functions. You can also define functions out of their functions they have. So I can define a function like this. Sine of 10 times x. So I can define a function like that. Oops. I need an equal sign. And then I can plot that function. So I can say plot using, for the x-axis, from 0 to 5. On the y-axis, from negative 100 to 100. And then f of x with lines. And it'll plot that up, and you get some fancy function that looks like something like this. So if you want to change the line style, you can. So I can just press up here and go back to the previous command that I entered. And I can go LT -1, which will just give me black. You can also change the line thickness. But you can also change some other things. I can change the X label on here. I can change the Y label. I can change the title. So I can, to change the X label, I can just go set X label. This is the X axis. And then I can replot that, and it'll show up there, as you can see. This is the X axis. I can do the same thing for the Y axis. I can also add in LaTeX if I wanted to. So I can just put dollar signs around it, and then you need to compile the plot with LaTeX or EPS LaTeX. You can set the terminal to output to LaTeX, and then you can include that LaTeX file within a LaTeX document, which is really nice. But that'll just change the x-axis. So if you wanted to plot it with points instead of lines, you can specify that. So I can just say with points, and this will be black points. Oh, there's nothing there. Maybe not. So I have red points there, and then I can change the point. So I can change the color of the point and the point size. So I can say point type 5 and point size 2. The default is 1, and I'll get red squares instead. So you can change the style pretty quickly. There's a lot of stuff online that you can find about the different styles and different colors of lines and points and different stuff like that. So you can also plot with lines, points, if you wanted to do that. So that'll give you lines and points.
Can you show how to save a plot?
Yep. Yeah. Well. What if your plot doesn't appear? Do you have X11?
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah. So if you want X11, sometimes it might not be by default. You can just go set term X11, but it's already set to that. You can also set the size of the command output too. I forget how to do that though. I think you can just go like size 1.1, and I'll set it to size. The default size is 1.1, but you can set it to something else if you want. You can also change it if you want in inches or centimeters or something like that. You can use that as well. So you can also plot multiple functions at once. So if I define another function called g of x, which I'll make it 5 times sine x, you can also plot f of x and g of x at the same time. So you can say plot f of x and g of x with points maybe. You get something like that. So you can also move the legend to the other side if you want to. So you can just say set key top left. So right now it's top right, but it'll now move to top left. So you can move it over there if you want to. So how can you make LaTeX work? So as I set the terminal to be X11 before, you can actually set term to be EPS LaTeX. And I think that worked. Yeah, it looks like it did. And then you want to set the output file to whatever you want it to be. So you just say set output to be plot.tex. And then you can, again, just do this, the same commands up here. And then now the output, instead of printing out to the screen, will actually print to that LaTeX file. And then you can include it within a LaTeX document. I've done that in the zip file that I've attached on that one web page. And I also have the data there, so I'll need to download that. So I'm just going to exit out of here, and then I'm going to copy.
It's lowercase.
Really?
I like lowercase.
Okay. Just copy -r.
You don't wear out the shift key.
Thankfully, my directory, like take over the world, is not it's not in my home directory. You know, that's buried.
Where did that go? Okay, so I have some data in here. And then I also have all of the stuff that I'm doing interactively in the command line within this script here. So I can actually run this script. I also have some information attached in there, but I can actually run this script in NewPlot if I wanted to. So if I wanted to do that, I can just do NewPlot and then whatever the script name is, and it'll run this stuff. So I have the stuff print out every 2 seconds, and then it pauses. So it's basically all the plots that I've been going over. But I'll also show you splot, which will come up in a second, which is this fancy plot of some Gaussian function, and then that was the fitting. But I'll go back into NewPlot, and if I want to plot that Gaussian function, I can just say splot, and then the data file that it's stored in. So I can hit tab, and then it'll show everything within that directory. So that'll be the Gaussian data. So if I just want to plot 2 columns of that, I can say using 1, 3 with lines if I want to. And that didn't work. Oh,
splot.
yeah, I need just regular plot rather than splot. So if I do that, then I get this, but I can also do the splot. So I'll just go back over here to the splot, and you can use 1, 2, and 3, which will give you a valid plot. And that'll plot it with lines. And you can move it around, do whatever you want with it. So you can also output to a PNG image if you want to. So if I just do set term, I'll get a list of all the outputs that you can do with NewPlot.
We do ASCII art.
Yeah, so you can actually do things like ASCII art and stuff like that. Normally you can do PDFs. I'm not sure if you have PDFs in here, Isaac. I know I don't have it on my Mac. So within LaTeX you can actually output to PDFs, but I haven't got it to work on Macs.
So you can do ASCII art in NewPlot?
Yeah, you
I
can.
saw it on the list.
Yeah. So it'll do like an ASCII art plot, which is not very useful, but I guess it's fun. So I'll show you guys how to fit. So I already know. So basically I have this file here, which is this fitting data, which I've just made using Python. And this is the function that is defining it, and it's on, I think, just 50 points, so it's not too coarse grain of a grid. But you can actually fit it with NewPlot. So if I go back into NewPlot here, I know what the function looks like. So it looks something like this. So I'll have some constant times some exponential function of minus some other constant times x.
Leave the table sign.
Oh yeah, sorry. And then it's multiplied by some other function.
So those constants don't have to be predefined?
You do have to predefine them for your initial guess. Yeah, but for now, I'll define it right now.
Sorry, and when you define this function, those things don't have to be known in the memory. A, B, and C at this point are unassigned.
Yeah, they're unassigned.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
If you try to plot it, though, it'll freak out.
Yeah, it'll definitely freak out if you try and plot it. So I'm just going to make an initial guess at the parameters that could possibly fit the function. And if you want to put separate commands in the same line in NewPlot, you need these semicolons to do so. For the last one here, I didn't have to put a semicolon in, but you can. And then all you need to do is just run this command here. It's just fit. So I'm going to fit that function to the data, which is called fitting data dot dat. And I'm going to use 1, 2. And then I'm going to use these parameters that I just defined, so via A, B, and C. And then it'll go through and it'll get these parameters for me, and it actually gets the exact same parameters that I used to actually define that function.
So that's,
which is really useful.
like Gauss-Newton fit, or?
I'm not sure what the fit is. Yeah, I never really looked into that. I kind of just a quick way to fit some data if you want to.
It's non-linear in those. Can you look up when you define?
It's non-linear.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
That's super useful.
Yeah. So that's really all I wanted to show. Is there any questions at all about any other? Yes?
Yeah, can you or anyone in the audience who knows comment on Nuplot versus Octave?
Well, I think Octave uses NuPlot, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
Octave uses NuPlot for its graphics by default.
Yeah.
At least it used to. I haven't used it.
I'm pretty sure it still does. Yeah.
MATLAB is
So the question I would have asked though would be about Matplotlib versus GNUplot, right? Because I always find that GNUplot, the graphics look kind of
Yeah, it looks funny. I use NuPlot more for just quickly plotting up data files from a simulation to check on it and stuff
Sure.
like that, rather than making official plots with NuPlot. But you of course can make presentation or publication worthy plots with NuPlot if you wanted to.
Versus Matplot?
But you can do the same thing with Matplotlib as well.
that's the
Yeah.
Python graphics library.
Yeah, it's yeah. If you're going through and scripting that much, then you might as well just use Matplotlib.
So Octave is supposed to be a replacement entirely for Matplotlib, right? NuPlot is supposed to be a standalone plotting data manipulation program, and Matplotlib is just doesn't stand on its own. It's part of Python. But the reason people use NuPlot is because it's installed everywhere, and it's super fast for just like
Yeah.
plotting some number.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Any other questions or comments about NuPlot? No?
Right?
Okay.
no.
Margins.
Take your time. I will bring out my magic wand if necessary. That's
So you gotta clip this bad boy on.
Oh, the talk?
Yeah.
I see. Isaac, can you show me where you put the files?
Oh yeah, right.
Sorry.
What do they call it? Is it my input and
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how it actually fits the I never really looked into it, kind of just put together pretty last minute, so I'll look it up.
There you go.
Thank you.
So it's like when you have an overdetermined system of linear equations,
Yeah.
you do this fitting in a least squares section.
Yeah.
So you can't use use spec because there's too many equations. So you do this variant of that. It's called Gaussian.
But that has to be linear, doesn't it?
Sorry,
The function has to be linear in the parameters ABC. I thought.
Gaussian? No,
Maybe not for Gaussian,
Gaussian is not.
but for the normal least squares.
Yes,
Yeah.
normal least squares. So so least squares, as you usually refer to it, you're fitting overdetermined linear systems. But you can also fit a system of nonlinear equation in a least squares sense as well.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
The term least squares just is overloaded.
Yeah. Events, or what's the best way of displaying the PDF?
The video?
It's a PDF.
Events.
Oh, just open.
Open.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I wrote up some slides because I wasn't sure. Anyway, we're going to go over redirecting input and output, piping input and output, that kind of interfacing with the bash command line, which might be a little basic for some of you, but there's always one or two little tricks you might learn. Then we're going to talk about the mainstream editing softwares, so grep, sed, and awk. So let's get started. So here we're not interested in grep and the details here. We're looking at the little arrows, the less than or greater than symbols in the middle. So here, the idea, is this going to work or? Yeah. The idea is that you can tell Unix where you're taking your input from using this symbol, or you can tell it where to put its output using this symbol. And Unix actually treats error output differently than normal output, so you can separate those like this. So the syntax is on the left-hand side, the stream ID. 0 is the input, standard input. 1 is standard output, so that's normal output, not errors. And 2 is errors. and you tell it where to go or where to come from. All right? There's two ways of doing it because by default, you're usually taking input from standard input, so you can emit the 0. You're usually talking about normal output, so you can emit the 1. 2 is always going to talk about error. Okay, so let's look at what that looks like. Did everybody see that all right?
And the terminal's a bit small.
Yeah. How do we?
Well, the font's small.
Yeah.
Thank
Cool. All right, so here I've got a file called my input, so let's just look at what that is. It's just some nonsense file that I wrote up. And then let's just say, let's run a command using that as an input. So grep ba input from my input. So grep, we'll talk about it in more detail later. It returns the lines in the file that match that pattern. So this is going to find all the lines in my input that have ba in it. Right? And it does that.
Won't it do that without the input redirection?
In this case, yeah, because grep specifically can read files like that, but any function that doesn't necessarily have a file reading capability can still be told using this syntax. So if I wanted to save the output, I could do this, output.txt, and now that file has the output. Okay. One of the problems with this syntax as it is that, let's say I do some other command, and I do the same thing again. I've overwritten my original result. So let's talk about a way of not overwriting results. If you want to save to a file without overwriting, you use 2 arrows. And instead of overwriting the file, you just add on to the end of the file. So if we do this again with 2 arrows, we've added on another banana to our file, right? You can use 2 arrows for the input as well. And in that case, you're specifying either you want to give it the input right there and then by hand, or you want to give it a string that will have the input contained in it. That's very specialized usage you probably won't need to do generally, but it might be useful in a string. So for instance, you could do cat. Cat is a command that just prints out whatever you give it. And you could give it a string like, this is a string. Notice we've used 3 arrows here, right? And it prints out this is a string. So that's very specialized. Yeah, Isaac doesn't even know that one, right? I can't think of many situations where you'd want to do this.
Sorry, what was the difference again?
3 input arrows.
What would have happened if
No,
you
but
only
what's the
put 2?
difference in like what it does?
So if you do 1,
Yeah.
you need to give it a file, and it prints out the file. If you do 2,
If you do 3, you can do
yeah, if you do 3, you can give it a string.
Okay.
And if you do 2, then you specify something, some marker by which it'll stop reading, and you say, I'm going to start typing stuff into the terminal, and you're going to print it. You're going to stop reading when I type in this case, EOF, but that could be anything. That could be banana. And so it'll type some stuff, EOF, and it prints out everything up until that point.
So normally I've used to create a string like echo, but basically I can, if anywhere that you're using like echo whatever into something else.
You could just do this
you
instead.
can do it with cat, triple. That's cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a neat little thing. It doesn't change anything, but
This changes everything.
so there's some other combos you could use. You can use greater than less than or less than greater than to open a file for writing. So that actually opens your file and has a placeholder in the file. And so that allows you to go through an input file or stream, which could be a string, it could be output from another file, and allows you to go through it character by character. Again, that's a very specialized usage. So if you want to like replace the 4th letter in your file, then you could do it this way. That we've covered. And you can use dash at the end of a stream to close the stream if you have a specialized situation where you have to open a file and then you want to close it again. Anyway, those are very specialized usages. For the most part, you're going to be doing input this way, output this way, error redirection this way, and anytime that you're outputting, whether it's error or standard output, you can use 2 output arrows to add onto the end of the file instead of repeating yourself, overriding yourself. Okay, we covered this quickly in the other case. This is when you want to do output and error to the same place. So you can either do it the long-handed way, which is specify the normal output goes here, and then the error, which is given by 2, goes to wherever the original output went. Alternatively, there's a shorthand for that, which is just this, ampersand and then the sign. So we did that in Isaac's example for cron tab. Order matters. That's another subtle point that you probably won't care about. Anyway, so this is an example like we did earlier, how to redirect the output to nowhere. Dev null is just a place on your Linux machine that does nothing. So we've covered input and output using files or streams or whatever. There's a way of taking the output from a program and running it directly into another program as the input. And the nice thing with this is that you can do it arbitrarily many times. So you could have a program that does echo word, and then you can pass that to grep. Oh, sorry. Word. Pass that to cat again. All right. So your first command echo word outputs a word, then you process it somehow and print it out again. So let's look at our input file here. We could do grep pipe that to, oh, let's do something nicer. Sort, and then echo, cat rather. Right, so you pull out all the lines with BA, you could sort them, for instance, and then you could print them back out. And you can do this arbitrarily many times. You run a program, you send the output of the program as the input to another program, and pipe them all together, and you get this long stream of events.
Can you do that one again, but change your cat to TAC, T-A-C? So TAC, oh, if it's installed, flip it.
Flip the order?
Cat is TAC, or TAC is cat backwards.
Yeah,
So
but
if you want to go back through a file,
so
Are the lines backwards or are
the lines are backwards.
the words are the same?
The words are the same.
Okay, you could also do sort backwards, whatever.
Yeah.
Plus.
No, I mean, there's a way of sorting it upside down, dash R,
Good.
right? So that reverses it, for instance, right? So in this way, using pipes, you can have an extremely complicated processing script that's one line long. Alrighty. Again, with piping, by default, you only pass the normal output to the next program. If you wanted to pass the error too, you have to use this notation. Okay, this is a useful trick. You can run a command inside another command. So let's look at ls. This gives you everything that's in our current directory. You could also do cat $ls. Oh, that's unexpected.
You cat the PDF.
Oh, that's right. There. So you can, basically this is exactly like doing ls, highlighting this text, and pasting it into wherever it is. So in arbitrarily long commands, you can just plug in a separate command in the middle of it. Sometimes you need to do that instead of piping or redirecting. You can also use tax. It's exactly the same thing, but the notation gets it. So backticks, right?
It's considered bad practice.
Yeah, it's harder to nest them when you use backticks, whereas with the dollar signs, it's pretty easy to $ls. Yeah, so the backticks is exactly the same thing as the $sign brackets, but when you nest them, it gets a little messier because it's the same symbol to start and to finish. So you have to escape them to do it once, and then after that, I don't even know how you do it if you want to nest like 3 of them.
It's a huge pain.
Yeah, exactly.
It's also hard to read.
Yeah. So in this case, you could do something like this. This could be like, I don't know, echo, and that works. Whereas if you did it with backticks, it wouldn't work, right? Okay. Another trick that I don't have in my slides here, if you want, and this has nothing to do with input and output, there's a command Control R, and that allows you to reverse search the last command you did by typing in. So I've just hit Control R, and we've gone into reversed I search, whatever that means. And I can type in like SCP, and that brings up the last time somebody used SCP in the command line. So like I said, that's not related to the current talk, but a lot of people don't know about that trick, and it saves you a ton of time. Okay. All right, so that's basically input-output. So there's the arrows, double arrows, triple arrows, and pipes. Now we'll look at stream editing. How am I doing for time?
4 minutes.
Okay. So regular expressions are a way of describing strings in general. So if you want to talk about all the strings that look like this, you can do it in this format. Right? So this means you start with a B, you've got AN 0 or more times, and you end on an A. So BA has 0 ANs, then you can put an AN in there, you can put 2 ANs in there, 3 ANs in there, and so on. There's a general theory for this, like in terms of mathematics, and every program has a slightly different implementation, so you're probably going to want to look up the documentation. But in general, this is what you need to know. Dots mean any character, so match anything once. Match C, match the number 8, but only one letter. Star means whatever you just had before this, 0 or more times. Plus means at least once or more times. You can group things with parentheses, and you can make a list of possible matches with square brackets. So
that list is more like a set in that sense.
yeah, and you match one from the following. Any one of the following. So for instance, what is going on? Right, so this is our file, and let's grep from this file anything that has R followed by at least one letter from my input. That didn't work. All right, so this is R followed by one or more letters. Truffle has an R there and then a bunch of stuff. Hungry has an R and then a Y. So if I instead did RU, truffle comes out, hungry does not. Right, so using this, if you can write whatever you're looking for in a general form, you can search for it very quickly with grep. So this is grep. You write out whatever pattern you're looking for, you pass it an input file, it returns all the lines that match that pattern, and then there's some quick options for refining your search. You can either say, instead of giving me all the lines that do match, give me all the lines that don't match. Ignore caps, capital A is equal to lowercase a. If you want to look at the line numbers, you can print that. And then there's -e here, or you can also use egrep. And that basically uses a slightly different implementation of the regular expressions. It's a bit easier to write if you're doing really complicated strings. Okay, another stream editor called sed. So this is, it takes an input that's line by line, a bunch of text, and it applies some operation to that text one at a time. So the standard way of using sed is with substitution. So let's say you've got, again, our old input file. You might do sed S means substitute, match some condition like starting the line and then a letter, and replace that with 999. Right, so now we've taken it, and every line that starts with a letter, almost every line starts with a letter. Oh, here we go. By default, sed prints out the original file too. So in this case, it duplicated everything. Right, so we've taken the original file. It said every time a line starts with a letter, replace that letter with 999 and print the line. By default, it'll print out all the lines first and then do that. So I told it with -n, don't print out those lines. And we get this. There's other options here too. So for instance, it's going to replace only the first occurrence of your match. So if you wanted to replace all the instances of your match, throw in G. If you want to replace the third match, throw in the number 3 afterwards. Okay, fine. Yep.
I think we'll switch.
Okay.
Right. Do you have a USB? Can I plug in a USB?
Yeah, for sure. Hold on a sec. This you here?
I don't. Yeah, that's me.
Okay. Do you want me to just leave you in there?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll just make a little directory for me and then.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just gonna open up another one for you if you don't.
Oh, okay.
So are you inside the?
I'm inside your key.
Okay.
Is that good?
Great. That's good. You've got Git on here?
I do. Yeah. Let me just clear up some of these other windows. Okay. There you go. Oh, and for the recording, just sort of click this thing on mute.
All right.
I can do it for it.
I will remember.
There you go.
Okay. Since I'm being recorded, I have to remember to watch my language. Oh goodness, this is a Mac. All right. Okay. So this is just something I discovered from this dude, Romain Vivant, and he made a really cool little. Let me see if this is going to work on your machine, Isaac. Yeah, good. All right, so let's do. Come on, what does this do? Let's see if it'll do make run. So that seems to be working. Oh, bugger, this always happens. All right.
If you want, I can put you in a Linux box.
Blah, 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 blah.
Or we can abandon and report it, whichever one you want.
We could try my machine. So you can put me on a Linux box?
Yeah.
Why don't we try that? And then
While that's loading, I have a question that's probably jumping in. Can Pandoc convert PDFs into other formats?
no, it's basically using. So Pandoc is mostly for text-based things, right? I think it can. You might be able to do rich RTF into something else. So Pandoc. Let me explain. Well, sorry, Isaac, just explain that. So Pandoc is a tool that I use for converting between different text formats. Usually, I start with something simple like Markdown, very simple, lightweight markup language. And I can switch it to LaTeX. I can switch it, instead of LaTeX, I can generate PDF from LaTeX using Markdown or HTML. Those are the things I usually use it for, but it's quite versatile and quite powerful. It has all of these extensions to Pandoc as well, but wow, okay.
So you can turn LaTeX into PDFs, but you can't turn PDFs into LaTeX.
I believe not, no.
Yeah,
But
that
if
would
you,
be really nice.
huh?
That would be awesome, right?
Yeah, so you could steal people's slides, yes. Do it.
Should be good to go. So it's 3 o'clock. Don't feel guilty about eating.
Make is not installed.
Pardon me?
Never mind. I can cat the make file and then figure it.
Let me just install make. Well, so this is obviously not the machine I normally use. Ray's gonna laugh at me now on the internet. He's like, that guy never makes anything? No, sorry. You actually have sudo too. Who would be interested in doing something like this again? Search show of hands. This type of thing. Good.
Yeah. This is just not working, Isaac. This is why. Okay.
No,
Never mind.
We'll just bail on it and use your laptop. That's great.
Okay.
Let me do that. Apologies for this. I gave no notice on this whole video thing, so this is totally my fault. Sorry.
Being able to use it to that's an amazing trick. Exit everything erased.
Sorry.
When I accidentally type VI, I hit full I don't even try if I can.